Welcome to a pod somewhere in time. I'm your host, John, and I'm here with my co host, Matthias. And we have a special episode for you here today. You may have noticed that at the end of our Somewhere in Time episode, we did not discuss the B sides and the singles that were released for that record like we have done in the past podcasts. That's because the B sides for Somewhere in Time have a very unique backstory to them, and we thought it would be better and easier to do that as a separate episode. So, the singles that were released from the Somewhere in Time album are Wasted Years, which was backed with a song called Reach Out and another song called The Sheriff of Huddersfield. That single was released on August 25th, 1986. The other single was Stranger in a Strange Land, backed with a song called That Girl and a song called Juanita. This single was released on November 10th. Three of these songs have a connection to the band we are going to be discussing during this podcast. This band was called the Entire Population of Hackney, and here is their backstory. In the fall of 1985, after the very long World Slavery Tour, the band took an extensive break. But Nico got the urge to play again, so he invited Adrian over to jam. Adrian invited his friends, Dave Bucket Caldwell and Andy Barnett, to join, both of whom were guitar players. And Nico invited his friend Martin Connolly to play bass. So first, let's summarize who is in this band and the names to look out for during this pod. So we've got Adrian Smith on vocals and guitar, Nico McBrain on drums. We all know them. Andy Barnett on guitar and vocals, who was an ex-Urchin member. Urchin was Adrian's old band before he joined Iron Maiden. Andy also played with UK band Visage from 84 to 85 on the album Beat Boy with Steve Barnacle on bass. Steve Barnacle would play into these songs, have a connection to these songs that we'll discuss later. And he also played lead guitar with Corey Hart on his 1983 album First Offense and the hit single Sunglasses at Night. Yes, thought that you could connect Corey Hart and Sunglasses at Night somehow to Iron Maiden? 5 degrees of separation, I guess. And Andy Barnett would later be in Adrian's solo band ASAP and the band FM. Dave Bucket Caldwell on guitar and vocals. He was an ex-Samson member. He played on the live album Thank You and Good Night from 1985. He was also later in Adrian's solo group ASAP. He was also in Bad Company and Humble Pie. Martin Connolly, a bass guitar, he was ex of the band Marshall Fury. And he also played with Nico on his single and drum video, Rhythm of the Beast, released in 1991. According to the book Maiden Avenue by Maiden researcher Ricardo Lira, Kenny Mountain from Beckett was also involved for a little while and joined them on stage for the second gig. Kenny was one of the men behind 2 Minutes to Midnight B-side Rainbow's Gold, as mentioned in our Power Slave episode. Well, we're going to have a trivia game here to see if everybody said, were you paying attention during the Power Slave episode, everybody out there? Did you catch that? All right. Okay,
Of course they did.
So the entire population of Hackney, they would do, or this band would do 2 gigs. One on December 17th, but on this gig, they would call themselves the Sherman Tankers. This gig was at the Red Lion Pub in Gravesend outside of London. They also played on the 19th, but for this gig, they called themselves the Entire Population of Hackney. Even that band name is going to be disputed here. Matthias is going to get into that when I hand it over to him. The show was at the world famous Marquee Club in London. A bootleg recording exists of this second night, and that will be the band/version we will be discussing here, as the three above mentioned B-sides would be played at this gig. The bootleg of the Entire Population of Hackney gig is of historical significance, not only because this would be the live introduction of these songs that would eventually land as B-sides that we are discussing here. This gig and band is also viewed as the precursor to Adrian's solo band ASAP, which would feature members that were in this one-off group, the entire population of Hackney. Okay, so just to help you find this, if you search for the bootleg recording on YouTube, it will come up as Iron Maiden, and the name of the bootleg will be The Entire Population of Hackney, just to add some extra layers of confusion to the whole event. All right, the songs we're about to discuss were performed during these gigs, as we mentioned, but also performed was future Adrian Smith and Project songs Silver and Gold, When She's Gone, and Fighting Man. For the second gig at the Marquee, the remaining guys of Iron Maiden got up and played Lost for Words and 2 Minutes to Midnight. Pete Way from UFO also got up to play on Tush by ZZ Top and Rosalie, made famous by Thin Lizzy. Okay, so to summarize the B-side situation for Somewhere in Time, we've got That Girl. It's listed as a cover by a band called FM, but the story is much more complex and nuanced than that. We will get into that soon. Juanita is a cover of a Marshall Fury song. Martin Connolly used to be a member of Marshall Fury, along with Steve Barnacle on bass, and even Nico McBrain spent a few moments in Marshall Fury. Reach Out was written by Dave Cowell. Andy, Martin, and Dave, as we've already said, as we mentioned earlier, were all members of the group, the entire population of Hackney. All three of these songs were performed at that secret gig. The last remaining B-side, and maybe the easiest to explain out of all of these, is The Sheriff of Huddersfield. This is written by Iron Maiden and was sort of an interband joke song about their manager, Rod Smallwood. Okay, Matthias, this is Trivia City. We are really going deep here with
Deep.
yeah, into a deep hole. So I'm going to hand this over to you, and you run with this football from here.
Okay, so
I could
this
only
is
run this so far up the field. You've got to run it the rest of the way.
bring it home. I will bring it home now. Okay, so my story with all these songs goes, of course, to the very singles, as we will talk about these songs and so on. But I think you must have been like 80, maybe 87, 88. There was this guy who sold bootleg recordings through ads in my local newspaper. How about that? And the ad said something about rare LPs with, and then listing like Metallica, Iron Maiden, popular bands in the later part of the 80s. And I phoned him up, and he had this one. Here, as we can see, the title of this Iron Maiden so-called bootleg is The Whole Population of Hackney. And as I listened to this today for the first time in quite a few years, to be honest, I noticed that they also introduced themselves as The Whole Population of Hackney. But if you read about this, just like you just said, John, if you read about this online, everywhere it says the entire population of Hackney. So I don't know where the confusion comes from, or if there's even a confusion about it, or I don't know. But this is the bootleg that I got, and I remember when Adrian released his first solo album, the ASAP Adrian Smith and Project. I noticed that there were a few songs that I recognized from this bootleg that was released in later. His album was released in '89, just like we said before. But there's also a few covers and so on this. But this is the sort of the origin of many of these songs. And just like you said, the reason that we want to do this special episode is because there's so much history and trivia within these titles that I think that if we were to have talked about that like in our normal episode about Somewhere in Time, that would just added like half an hour or something, or let's see how long this goes, but something like that, and it would just be too long. And since I'm a huge fan of trivia and all things very trivial. I thought I would try to reach out. Yes, you heard right. Try to reach out to Dave Colwell, Andy Barnett, and I would also try to get in contact with Steve Barnacle. So through emails, Messenger, I sort of conducted very simple interviews where I just emailed them or through Messenger sent them a bunch of questions. And what I learned, we will talk about when we go through all these titles. So let's get into the very singles. Like you said, the first single of Somewhere in Time was indeed Wasted Years. The story behind the cover is similar to the backstory to the Running Free single, the first EMI single they released in 1980. And the backstory is sort of that they didn't want to sort of show off the new cyborg Eddie until people got to see the very album in the stores. So they sort of made this, or rather Derek Riggs or Rod Smallwood or whoever came up with the idea, to put Eddie in sort of like you can see his face in the background in one of the panels here in the time machine that I guess they're traveling on in. Not much to say about this. It's a nice looking cover, perhaps not the most exciting one of all the single covers they released, but a funny detail is if you have the single, you can also find the TARDIS, Doctor Who's here in this sort of time. I guess it's a time tunnel of a sort that we are traveling along with Eddie here on the sleeve. So the B-sides for this single, Wasted Years, was Reach Out and Sheriff of Huddersfield. Reach Out was, like you said, written by Dave Bucket Colwell. People call him Bucket. I have no idea why. I didn't ask him. And this was sort of an original song that the band, the whole population, the Sherman Tankers, the Entire Population of Hackney, or whatever they were called, played. It was a song that Dave told me he wrote about his brother. He had a bit of a falling out and a fight with his brother, and he sort of wrote this song and the lyric to sort of reach out to him and say, hey, get your head straight here, brother. Much like you said, Dave Colwell was in the band Samson during this period. In Samson, of course, we know Samson because that was the band where Bruce Dickinson made his name under the name Bruce before he joined Maiden. But this is a bit later on. And in this version that was active in 84 and 85, there was the drummer Pete Jupp and also the bass player Merv Goldsworthy. And Dave was sort of additional guitar player, rhythm guitar player in Samson. Of course, Paul Samson, it was his band. It was his name, Samson. And but they sort of tried to expand their sound, and Dave Colwell got enlisted as a rhythm player, but he also did a few solos and so on. And when I had this interview with Dave, he sort of mentioned that Paul Samson was the guy who made him into a proper rock guitar player, because earlier on he was, according to himself at least, too keen to play everything right. And he said that Paul Samson sort of kicked him in the butt, cranked up his amplifier and said, you go out on stage and stay in front and you just rip those solos. So he was playing with Paul Samson even after the band Samson sort of went down, and it was Paul Samson's empire for a few years after that. And Dave Colwell continued to play with Paul Samson. So Dave Bucket Colwell was a friend of Adrian and the aforementioned Andy Barnett. They were friends since their early 20s when Adrian and Andy was in their band, like you mentioned, Urchin. Um, when I had this interview with Dave, he said he was very pleased that Adrian got to sing this song. And why is Adrian doing his only, so far at least, as we know it, the story, it's the only time where Adrian Smith is doing the lead vocals on a song recorded and performed by Iron Maiden. But apparently it was Steve's idea that Adrian should do it, and Dave was very thankful for that because he wrote it thinking about Adrian doing the vocals. So he was very pleased. He also told me that he was very surprised when he was contacted by Adrian during the recording of the Song We're in Time album, where he told him that, well, we're going to record the song Reach Out for a B-side. The backstory goes that all these songs and why they were recorded was also because of Steve Harris. It was Steve Harris that sort of suggested that, why don't we give these guys a shout out, as we say today, and play their and record their songs, which was, of course, a very nice thing to do. And back in these days, if you had a B-side to a single, that meant money in the bank because Maiden sold singles, of course. So that was a nice gesture of the band, I think. One thing I particularly asked Dave about was the drum arrangement, and if the drum arrangement was something that he sort of wrote for Nico, or if it was just Nico. And Dave said that he just bashed along to the song, because I think the drum part for Reach Out is quite particular. Like we've discussed so many times before, the way that Nico plays the drums is always in tune with the song, and so he's very sort of songwriting-y kind of drum arranger in that sense, and also for Reach Out, apparently. Is there anything else? Yes, Dave recorded this song on one of his solo albums in 2010. I hope I get this right. The album was called Guitars, Beers and Tears. And on that version, his own version, Adrian also recorded the vocals for Dave Coleman. So what do you think about the song, John? Do you like Reach Out?
Yeah, out of all these B-sides, this is the only one that I like and would listen to again. And it's funny when we were getting ready for this, I was completely unaware of this entire population of Hackney thing. I sort of I was listening to the recording on YouTube, but I also was listening to this off of the best of the B-sides. And I didn't know who wrote it, and I just assumed that Adrian had written this because it almost kind of sounds a little bit like the song Wasted Years. Like it has that, there's brief moments in it where it kind of sounds roughly like in the same sort of ballpark. And
Mm.
yeah, I think it's a good melodic rock song. It's really catchy. I was surprised that Adrian didn't write it because it sounds, again, sort of like something Adrian would write. It's fun kind of hearing Bruce as a backup singer. I was, listening to these songs. I also listened to it on YouTube, and I was reading the comments section, and somebody said something like, it must be pretty cool to have Bruce Dickinson as your backup singer, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed this song because I like melodic rock, almost AOR-ish pop rock type songs, and that's what this really borders on. And it's nicely
Mm.
produced. I think it's really catchy. I think the chorus in it is really catchy. Bruce's parts in it sort of stick in your ear. It's got a nice kind of vibe to it. It's kind of like Wasted Years again, where the chorus is really kind of uplifting and everything. So, yeah, by far, this is the most. I'll spoiler alert. I don't really like the other B-sides we're going to be discussing here. This is the only one that I like that I would come back to. And honestly, I've never heard Adrian's ASAP record. I mean, I think I've listened to it at some point in the past, and obviously, it made no impression on me. But this kind of makes me want to search that out again, and maybe I'll hear it with different ears or something because I think it's just a really good AOR melodic rock song.
Mm. I think one thing that you sort of mentioned, that it's very well recorded and so on. I wouldn't say that Maiden in the 80s at least, or later on, recorded B-sides badly, but when you listen to all these three songs, or four songs rather, they are very much performed with the same sort of quality, and the sound quality and the quality of the mix is as good as most of the songs on Somewhere in Time, which is a bit unusual, I think, but that just shows that they really want to pay respect to their friends by recording their songs, and not just like a sort of studio jam outtake throwaway kind of thing, but I mean properly do their versions of these songs, which I think is speaks speaks volumes actually. um, I really like Reach Out too. I liked it when I was a kid, and of course the very first time I heard it I couldn't really tell. I didn't know that Aidan was doing the vocals, but I heard that for sure that this is not Bruce Dickinson singing these lyrics. But I pretty soon learned that it was Aidan Smith doing the vocals, and so on. Yeah, I like this one. It's quite short, but it's very like well crafted and to the
Mhm.
point sort of songwriting. Moving on to the other side for the Wasted Years single, and that is the Sheriff of Huddersfield. Sheriff of Huddersfield was originally a song by Adrian Smith. It was played and recorded by Urchin prior to joining Iron Maiden. It then was called Life in the City, and of course the first line in the song is Life in the City, living in LA, blah 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 blah. So they sort of kept that in. But of course it's a completely different lyric for the Iron Maiden version, which is of course not Life in the City, but Sheriff of Huddersfield. And like you said, it's about their manager. Apparently, it's the credit on when you read the sleeve, it just says Iron Maiden, but the music is Adrian Smith, and the melodies and the lyrics are by the whole band. And also, I learned reading all these books that I'm constantly talking about. They also brought in a few of the crew to sort of give them ideas about what to sing about and how to present their beloved manager Rod
Mhm.
Smallwood. Um, you mentioned it also that Andy Barnett was in Urchin, and the band Urchin's backstory is quite long. Adrian started a band called Stone Free very early on, when he was like 14 or 15 or something, with his mate Dave Murray. It then turned into the band Evil Ways. Why they thought that Evil Ways is a better name than Stone Free, I
Mhm.
have no idea.
Mhm.
And when they got a record deal, they changed the name again to Urchin. Back then, Andy Barnett wasn't in the band, but it was sort of Adrian Smith. And by the time that they changed the name to Urchin, Dave was long gone, because this was when Iron Maiden had started out to play together. And of course, as we talked about, I think in the first or no, in the second episode, Dave left or was kicked out of Iron Maiden for a few months, and during his time out of Iron Maiden, he joined Urchin again to play with his mate Adrian Smith. What's more to say about this song? Yes, there is you can find a sort of official, unofficial recording by Urchin, and the song Life in the City released by the German label High Roller in 2010. So if you want to go back, you can find that, I guess. Yes, the song Sheriff of Huddersfield, back then I thought it was sort of funny. It has this sort of, I wouldn't say rap, but a sort of spoken part where Bruce is trying to sound a bit like Rod, where he's showing off and uh, says that he's so very, very strong and blah, 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 and
Mhm.
everything. Maybe the song hasn't really stood the test of time. I think I enjoyed it more when I was younger. Now I think I enjoy it more because of its sort of historical meaning, or so to speak. But it is a bit of a throwaway song. And apparently, Rod thought why they only recorded and was supposed to release one song as the B-side, because they kept it a secret until the very record was pressed and until the launch party, where where Rod got to know about the third song on the maxi single, which was about him. But I think he took it in good spirit. I think I read a comment somewhere that the only thing he sort of objected to was that they sing about that he cheats in poker. But he said, I never cheat when I play cards.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a throwaway. I mean, like you said, I guess it has some sort of time capsule feel to it. You know, it's just a funny little aside from from this point in time for them. But I mean, it's not something that did I did I wake up and say I want to listen to the Sheriff of Huddersfield? You know, it's just part of Iron Maiden history. I guess it's kind of funny because this seems to be a running gag. When I was listening to this, it was reminding me of the Iron Maiden was the early years DVD that came out with the history part of the band, and there's like a
mm,
particular short section where they're talking about Rod, and it seems like whenever anybody talks about Rod, they have to imitate his, you know, the way he speaks and everything, and I guess he has sort of a loud, you know, kind of a presence
yeah,
to
yeah.
him that you know the guys seem to sort of make fun of. So that's fun. And
Like,
you know what I mean? If this was the only B-side, I think it would be, I would say, well, it's just as stupid. They should have put something on it. But you already got Reach Out. This is just, to me, it's just a throwaway. They had the space. It's an interband joke, probably the type of thing that helped keep them loose and sane when they were as busy as they were. So, I mean, for
mm,
those Iron May, if you haven't heard it, it's on the B-sides collection, best of the B, not best of the B-sides. What is the B-side collection called? The CD with the B-sides. Uh,
is it the best of the? I can't remember now, actually.
yeah, I don't think it's the best, right? Because it includes all of them. I'm looking around. Yeah, it is best of the B-sides. I thought it was all
Yeah.
the B-sides. I thought there was one that, you know what, maybe this is, if you look on streaming, I have Apple Music. It's under compilations. It's called the best of the B-sides. It's a two-disc set where I thought it was all the, maybe they do leave out some B-sides, so that's why they call it the best of the B-sides. But it is on there, as
Mm,
is Juanita, that girl in Reach Out. So if you're interested in hearing these songs, you can hear them on streaming, or of
mm,
course they're on YouTube.
mm.
All right, so how about a Stranger in a Strange Land?
Yes, Stranger in a Strange Land. A bit of show and tell for you watching on YouTube. The single. This is UK poster bag edition, which is quite nice. All of these singles are available in picture disc. I think the oh, yeah, the poster is quite
Oh,
nice.
cool. Yeah.
Mm. And of course, the sleeve itself is very. I think it's a firm fan favorite because it has so much uh, mystique, and I mean, like we've said so many times before, any band in the world would like to have an album cover with this sort of quality and detail. And but for Maiden in the 80s, this was just only a single release. This is, as you can see, a Japanese edition that has Juanita, Reach Out, but also Lost for Words live from a previous live single, and Sheriff of Huddersfield. Another thing that's really nice about this Japanese is that there's a very nice tour poster. Looks like this with Japanese dates. And finally, the very vinyl itself has a sort of, see if you can see that. Do you
Oh,
see it
cool.
says
Yeah. It's got an
it's an
etching. Yeah.
yeah, somewhere on tour 87, because that's the year when they toured Japan. So this is a really nice collector's item to have. Okay, that girl was the B-side for both the 7-inch and the 12-inch. Like we said, it was written by Andy Barnett, who we have talked about in his history with Adrian. Andy Barnett has shared the credits with drummer Pete Jupp and Merv Goldsworthy, the bass player from the Samson band that we talked about earlier. I have had a bit of a discussion with Andy about this song because, like you said, when you look online, it is listed as an FM cover, but which isn't really true, actually. Yes, it was released a few weeks prior to Iron Maiden releasing the Stranger in a Strange Land single, but they recorded them simultaneously, and Iron Maiden had no idea at all that FM were to record this song and release it as a. I think they even made a video for this one. Have you listened to the FM version of that girl?
No.
It's an interesting study in the sounds of the 80s because the Maiden version sounds like, well, you know what it sounds like, but the FM version has like D drums, it has synthesizers, it's very very ROR ish
Yeah.
compared to the Maiden version. I mean, it just reeks of that sort of easy listening, if you ask me. It's sort of lightweight metal that were popular from the second half of the 80s. So, what is the story behind all this confusion? I say it's not an FM cover, but FM recorded and released this before Iron Maiden. What is going on here? Okay. Back in, it must have been 84, Andy told me that they had a sort of running Friday night jam sessions. And the core of these sessions were Andy Barnett. He was the guitar player. It was also his friend, Dave Colwell, that wrote Reach Out. It was also the drummer, Pete Jupp, and the bass player, Merv Goldsworthy, who then also was in the band Samson. So they had like singers coming and going. On the version on the bootleg, the whole population of Hackney, it's Andy Barnett himself who is doing the vocals, actually. And I think he has a very nice voice, I must say. But anyway, I digress. Singers came and went. They had this song, That Girl, that Andy says was sort of a song that he wrote. It was his chords, his melodies, his lyric. But I guess as they were jamming this song, the bass player and the drummer sort of made it there as well. And we have talked about this. What is a songwriting credit? Who's the one that's writing a song? If you're in the room while it's being jammed, are you co-writing a song? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, Iron Maiden has always been very firm in that way, that the guy who has the melody and the chords, that is the guy who is writing the song. But we have heard, and like we've spoken about in previous episodes, there are times where we would say that maybe Nico McBrain should have a songwriting credit for his drum arrangement because it's so much in the song. Maybe Adrian Smith should have a co-credit for doing the guitar melodies and guitar harmonies. But again, anyway, so they had this song. Andy at the time was doing session work, and Corey Hart were, I think, in London recording the album that you mentioned. The song Sunglasses at Night became a hit, and of course, you have to go to North America to tour this. So Andy goes away to tour as the guitar player for Corey Hart. While being there, him not knowing, the drummer Pete and bass player Merv decided to move on and to start the band FM. They also took the song That Girl and recorded it on their first demo, which led to their contract with, I think, Epic, I think it was. So they got a record deal on this song, more or less. So, and apparently Andy didn't know about this. Dave said that he didn't know about this either. They just sort of moved on. And there were two brothers, Chris and Steve Overland, who came in on guitar and vocals that you can hear doing the FM version that's available and recorded for their debut album, Indiscreet. So, I mean, is it an FM cover? It wasn't written for FM. They sort of recorded it since the bass player and the drummer of what would be in or would start up FM recorded it. So I wouldn't say that That Girl is a cover of an FM song. It's more a cover of the song that they did. And Andy was very firm with that. I'm using this song as I please. So when they did the gigs, the Sherman Tankers, whole population of Hackney gigs, he said, I'm playing my song, no matter what. And by this time, FM was they were up and running also. There are slight differences in between the songs. Andy said that the guitar part, the harmony thing was suggested by Adrian. The dee doo 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 part was Adrian, and Andy just played a harmony to that melody that Adrian came up with. Again, is that songwriting? Maybe it should have been. Anyway, I asked Andy what he thought about the Maiden version as opposed to the FM version. And remember, he would later join FM, I think in 89 or 90 or something. Should have looked that up, sorry. But I think around that time. But he very much preferred Iron Maiden's version to FM's version because he thought it's a bit more heavy, the way that they played it when they were doing these jam sessions for the whole population of Hackney and those gigs. I must admit that when I was a kid, I really did not like this song. I thought it was too sappy. I didn't like the chorus, That Girl. It didn't sound like anything that I think should be associated with Iron Maiden. I didn't get it at all. Now, being an old man and a bit more mature, I think I can say that I think it's a good song, and I really enjoy Iron Maiden's version. I'm not a huge fan of the FM version. It's a bit more stripped down, and with all these 80s sound, it sort of ruins it for me at least. But I think That Girl is that's good songwriting to me, and I like the song. I don't mind listening to it. I understand that you're not a huge fan, John.
No, I mean it's not. I like melodic stuff. I like stuff with hooks and stuff like that. Reach Out, I thought was really good. But this just doesn't stick with me. I mean, I just think it's okay. I would have rather have, if you're gonna do something like this, that's not a cover in the sense of you're covering a Thin Lizzy song, you're covering a UFO song. It's got to be a really good song. And I think Reach Out meets that criteria. Like, okay, this is worthy of this. But to me, this is just a throwaway. kind of song. It's okay. I mean, it's not terrible, but it just doesn't it's not heavy enough and interesting enough in that respect to keep my attention. It's not melodic and catchy enough in the pop sense to keep my attention. So it misses the mark for me on both both fronts here. It doesn't, again, I'm somebody who likes real melodic AOR poppy stuff, and I'm somebody who likes heavy riffing stuff, and this just misses both of those marks for me. It's just kind of there. So I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me. I probably wouldn't listen to this again. Again, it's not terrible, but it's just there.
Mm. I think that the one thing that is kind of unusual with it, and now I'm talking about the Maiden version, is that if you are to say, and there are good reasons to call this sort of AOR-ish type of metal music, but musically it's kind of morose and a bit dark-ish, which is a
Yeah.
bit of a strange combination. But I think that's now, as a grown up, I think that sort of adds to the atmosphere of the song. And like I said before, the production by Martin Birch and the mix is just like, it's super good. And especially if you compare the two versions, the FM version and the Maiden version, it's like the Iron Maiden version just sounds so good. Whereas the FM version, and remember, this is one of FM's more popular songs, that their version is so much colored by the sounds of that period in time in '86 when they recorded it. It's like you can almost sort of just do a sort of bingo. Okay, do we have like
Yeah.
the synth sounds? And then they're there. You can knock that off the list. Do they have sort of D drum ish sounds? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we can. I mean everything, and the difference in between Steve Overland, the singer for FM, who is, as far as I know, a very revered sort of AOR melodic hard rock singer, and you compare him to Bruce Dickinson. To me, it's like two different worlds. I mean, literally, the way that Bruce sings this lyric is with he sort of tells a story, which I think is great. But where Steve Overland just sings it like someone should sing back then. Like if you're doing a Bon Jovi type of or version of this song, you shouldn't be too bluesy. Is that a word I could use
Yeah.
here? Maybe. But anyway.
Yeah, and it does, like you said, you can kind of, they did put the time into the production of it. And it does, if I remember, have like a little bit of like a gallopy type of Iron Maiden vibe to it. So, I mean, you could have told me that this was a song that they were thinking about putting on the record, but that they didn't put on the record. And I would say, yeah, okay, I can understand why they didn't put this on the record. Not a terrible song, but not as good as the other songs. It's not so strange that I guess the lyrics are too, that girl. I just don't like I don't like the lyrics, and the lyrics don't I don't know. But musically, like if you just listen to the music, it's not that far off at times from because again, somewhere we talked about this in the Somewhere in Time episode that Adrian has a big hand in the writing, and there is sort of a more melodic sense to some of the songs on Somewhere in Time. So, for that reason, whereas the Sheriff of Huddersfield, I would say listen to it once just so you can say you've listened to it and then never listen to it again. This is something that is worthy of repeat listens and is kind of interesting to hear Iron Maiden. And if you could almost put this in a what if world, what if Iron Maiden decided to put out a more radio rock album?
Mm,
Instead of singing about Iron Maiden type topics, they sang about topics like this. And, it still has signature. I think if you played this for somebody and even without even the Bruce part without Bruce singing just the musical parts of this, somebody might be able to guess that it was Iron Maiden because it does have sort of, it's not so far out of the realm of what Iron Maiden does. So I guess it's interesting for that, and that's what these B-sides are for. The B-sides
Mm,
are for them to do things that they wouldn't do in an Iron Maiden on an Iron Maiden record. You don't want the B-sides to. I'd rather this than somebody putting out B-sides that are like songs that were terrible that didn't make it on the normal record.
mm,
I kind of think it's interesting that they sort of experiment with different things, and then you can kind of hear like them doing covers. You can hear them doing stuff like this, where you're kind of like, gee, if Iron Maiden were to pursue a different direction, this is maybe kind of what they would sound like. So yeah, as a B-side, it's perfectly acceptable as a B-side.
mm. Okay, if we've been nerdy now, we'll be even nerdier when we talk about the song that Iron Maiden called Juanita, but actually was called Never Going Back when it was first done by the band, like you mentioned, Marshall Fury. Okay, I've written down this because there's so much information here that I don't want to get these things wrong. Like I said, I contacted Dave Caldwell, Andy Barnett, and in like the last minute or so, I heard back from Steve Barnacle. Who is Steve Barnacle? Steve Barnacle was a musician playing in the 70s, of course, like all these guys. I think he's slightly older, though, than the Maiden guys, or ish, or I don't know, maybe so. So he was teaming up with a Canadian who had moved to England to pursue a musical career, Derek O'Neill. Derek is unfortunately dead since a few years back. Derek O'Neill and Steve Barnacle had this band that they called Marshall Fury. But there was a history with Nico McBrain playing with Marshall Fury and the band that sort of went on before that. So the backstory is that there was a band called Fury. Fury had a drummer called Topper Headon, which is of course the drummer known from The Clash. So now we can also add The Clash to this confusion. Topper Headon joined The Clash and left, and then Nico was in the band for a few months, I guess. By then, they had changed their name to Blazer Blazer. But Nico was kicked out of the band by the singer, Jeb Mill, who just, according to Steve Barnacle, got tired of Nico's bad temper. So, forward a bit, the band Blazer Blazer is no more, and Derek and Steve Barnacle starts the new band Marshall Fury. They wrote this song. Derek wrote the words and the melodies, and Steve wrote the music for the song called Never Going Back. I asked Steve why Maiden sort of changed the name of the song to Juanita, but he doesn't know. He also said that Bruce changed a few words from the original lyric. Also, to add to the confusion, or the interconnectedness of all things, the band Marshall Fury also included Andy Barnett for a while. But he wasn't in the band at the same time that Nico McBrain was in the band. But we mentioned the bass player from the whole population of Hackney, Sherman Tankers, Martin Connolly, and he was in the band Marshall Fury for a while as well. The song Reach Out and That Girl, I think, were written around 84-ish. This song is from the 1979. What happened was that Nico was in this band, Marshall Fury, But he was also trying to sort of establish himself, or was working as a full-time musician. And because he couldn't, the band Marshall Fury never really took off, he sort of got offered a better gig with, I think it was Donovan McKitty. He sort of went on tour with them instead and left the band. And I think for a while, Steve Barnacle's brother, who was later playing with musicians such as Yngwie Malmsteen, played. And the only recording there is, sort of original recording never released, is not with Nico on drums. But apparently Nico just loved this song, and it was his suggestion that they should do this song for the whole population of Hackney, entire population of Hackney, or Sherman Tankers. Let's see. Steve Barnacle himself also left the band because he was off playing guitar with Rick Wakeman from Yes. So now there's a connection from Yes to Iron Maiden as well. And this was in 1980. And of course, he was replaced by Andy Barnett. And that was after the disbandment of Urchin. Let me see here my notes so I don't miss anything. Yes. Also in the history of Iron Maiden, there is a name by a band called Broadway Brats. And Broadway Brats was a band that Andy Barnett and Adrian Smith was in for like a couple of months in the 1980, I think, like late spring, summer of 1980, again before Adrian was asked to join Iron Maiden in the fall of 1980. And that band, the Broadway Brats, has Jeb Milne, who fired Nico McBrain from the precursor to Marshall Fury. So, yeah. Another thing that I thought was quite funny when I was writing back and forth to Steve Barnacle about all this, I asked him, of course, if he went to any of these two gigs by the whole population of Hackney. And he said to me that he had never heard of these gigs taking place at all in the first place. So, but he told me he was invited to like the release party for Somewhere in Time, where he was asked to arm wrestle Rod Smallwood as a favor to the band, only to beat him because they thought that Rod Smallwood should be put in place. And apparently Steve Barnacle was quite strong, so he challenged Rod Smallwood to arm wrestle him to shut him up.
That's funny.
That's
It
funny.
is kind of weird. I didn't mention this earlier that this you would have thought that because the bootleg recording that's online of this show, it sounds just like an audience recording.
Mm.
Now I
It is.
understand that they couldn't afford to hire the Rolling Stone Mobile or something to record this, but I'm kind of surprised that somebody didn't put a cassette player in and run something right off the soundboard or
Mm.
something, and that,
Yeah.
and who knows, maybe they did, and maybe that exists somewhere, and it's just they've never done anything with it, but for probably reasons of trying to straighten out who would have to get paid for all this and everything. But it would be interesting to hear kind of a better quality recording of this because this bootleg, I mean, by bootleg standards, it's not terrible, but it's probably a 6 out of 10 or something. It sounds like they're in the back of the room, so it's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit hard to kind of hear what's going on. It would be interesting to hear this because the band does sound good. It doesn't sound like a band that basically just got together and only did two shows. The band sounds actually pretty good, so it would be fun to hear a proper recording of this bootleg show. But
It would be, yeah. And when we are talking about all the sort of facts and factoids and perhaps misunderstandings and things that people get wrong and so on, there are, you can read about that they played more gigs than two, uh, and that was earlier in December of 1985. But I asked Bucket, Dave Colwell, And he said that no, there were only these two gigs. We didn't play any other gigs than these two gigs. But I don't know. Andy himself, Andy Barnett, said that he couldn't really remember if they did more than two gigs, because he said, I was gigging so much at the time, playing with different bands, that I can't really remember. I was playing gigs on pubs all over London with different people and in jam sessions and so on. So he couldn't really remember. I guess we'll never know. There is another rumor that I don't think have been confirmed by anyone officially. I tried to ask these gentlemen if they had any information they would like to share, but they made it absolutely clear that they wouldn't discuss such a thing. And that is it Steve Harris playing the bass guitar on all these songs? Because there are rumors that it's Adrian playing bass guitar for the song that we just talked about, the song Juanita. But unless we bump into Steve or Adrian or anyone else in the band, I guess we just have to not know for now at least. About the song, I didn't say that. This song, Juanita, I really liked, actually. Even as a kid, I thought it was great. And it, for some weird reason, the heavy metal radio show Rockbox that was on Swedish radio back then, they didn't play the single. They didn't play the A-side, Strange in a Strange Land, but they played the B-side from the maxi single, Juanita, when they said that Iron Maiden has a new single out, and here's the B-side, Juanita. So that was actually the first song I heard of all these songs before I could get my hands on the very single itself. But I just think this is a sort of a happy, upbeat song. I really like this. I like Juanita.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. The main riff in it kind of has a new wave of British heavy metal vibe to
Mm,
it. You know, you could picture it being a Saxon riff or something.
mm,
So yeah, the main riff is cool. It's pretty catchy. It's got some energy to it. Do I think it's better than anything that's on Somewhere in Time? No, but for a B-side, it's still pretty good. And again, if you're that would be an interesting episode. Maybe we'll have to do this on Lair, The Alchemist, our top 10 Iron Maiden B-sides.
mm,
It might break my top 10
mm.
for the
I think.
B-sides. This is a pretty good one. And it's pretty cool that it's, again, sort of the theme, I guess you could say, of these B-sides is just that, not, I'm putting, if you're not watching the video here, cover songs, putting that in quotes. They're not cover songs. We already discussed this sort of thing with the FM song. So yeah, they're kind of doing songs that are they're not doing a UFO cover, so some song that you would already know.
Mm,
So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm okay with it. And like you said, the production value is good. You can tell that they put some thought into this. So yeah, as far as their B-sides go, I think this is one of the better ones.
mm. Absolutely. So, is there anything else to say about the whole population of Hackney and the Sherman tankers, or the entire population of Hackney, whatever? I think that I asked Andy, who came up with these names, and he said it was actually Rod Smallwood, the manager, who came up with the names. And of course, you know that Sherman tanker is what you would call Cockney rhyming slang. So if you're a Sherman tanker, then you are a
Something
wank
wanker.
wanker. Exactly.
So what is
So
the Sherman part? I don't
I
get the
think that
Sherman part.
I think it's German, but I mean it's some sort of London-esque in joke to say Sherman instead of German. So a German tanker is a wanker.
Okay. I never got this cocky. I remember when I was younger, there was this Iron Maiden book. I think it was called Running Free, I think is what it was
Yeah, yeah.
called. And in the back, it had like all this like Cockney slang. I didn't understand it then. I still don't. I mean, I get tanker, wanker, but I could just never, it never registered with me. I could never, I don't get it. But
It, it it it's a bit weird. It's like if you say that you have a butcher's, you sort of you you should say a butcher's hook, and hook rhymes with look. So if you have a butcher's, you have a look. It's all very confusing, but that's
yeah,
Cockney rhyming slang for you. And Sherman
okay.
tankers is that, of course. I think we've covered these songs very much in detail, and I hope to the to please everyone listening to this very pod.
All right. Well, there you go. This is our episode on this little interesting. So that's something that I didn't even know. I was unaware. I think I've seen this bootleg pop up scrolling around YouTube, and I just thought it was just an Iron Maiden live show because it's listed as Iron Maiden, and I just thought, oh, the name of the bootleg is the entire population of Hackney. It's just some random Iron Maiden bootleg. I had no idea that it was, this all this backstory to it. So. All right, well, there you go. Now you know too. Now we all know what the deal is with the entire population of Hackney. Impress your Iron Maiden friends at your next barbecue or party or something. So, okay, we'll be back with our next episode where we'll be moving on to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. In the meantime, you can check out, if you're not already watching this on the Lair the Alchemist YouTube channel, we post all of the podcasts are on my YouTube channel, Lair the Alchemist. So you can also watch it in video format if you wish. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can listen to the audio on Spotify or Apple Music. I also have two other podcasts that I do: Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast that I do with my buddy Darren, and Kicked in the Teeth, an AC/DC podcast that I do with author Martin Popoff. Mattias has a band, Dead Kosmonaut. I'm pretty sure if you're a fan of Iron Maiden, traditional metal, or just good metal, that you will like Dead Kosmonaut. You can find them on all the streaming platforms, and they're on Facebook and all over the place. So definitely check them out. And all right, till the next time, we will see you somewhere in time.